Imagine checking your security camera and seeing something inside your house when you know you're completely alone. At 3:17 a.m., a strange doll appeared in the footage. But the terrifying part, it kept getting closer every time the camera switched away. And what the camera recorded at the end of the night terrified him so much that he left the house forever. At exactly 3:17 a.m., a security camera inside an empty house recorded something that should not exist. The rain fell steadily that evening, tapping against the windshield of Daniel Carter's car as he slowly drove down the narrow road leading to his new house. The GPS voice calmly announced, "Destination reached." Daniel stared at the house in front of him. It stood alone at the end of the street, surrounded by tall trees and rusted fences. The paint had peeled away long ago, leaving the walls gray and cracked like old bones. But the price was impossible to ignore. The house had been listed for only $25,000. In a city where homes cost 10 times that amount, it felt like winning the lottery. Daniel grabbed the keys and stepped out of the car. The wind pushed the old gate open with a loud creak. As he walked toward the front door, he noticed something strange. Every house on the street had lights on. Except this one. And the one next door. The curtains of the neighbor's house slowly moved. Someone was watching him. An old woman opened the door and stepped onto her porch. "Are you the new owner?" she asked. Daniel smiled politely. "Yes. Just bought it yesterday." The woman's face changed immediately. Her smile disappeared. "You should not stay here." Daniel laughed awkwardly. "Why not?" The woman hesitated, glancing nervously toward the house. "That house has been empty for 20 years. Daniel shrugged. "Lots of houses sit empty." But the woman shook her head slowly. "No," she whispered. "This one is different." She stepped closer and lowered her voice. "People hear things inside at night." Daniel forced a smile. "Old houses make noise." The woman leaned closer. "And sometimes..." She paused. "People see something standing in the upstairs window." Daniel turned and looked. The upstairs window was dark. Completely empty. He laughed nervously. "Probably just reflections." The woman didn't laugh. Instead, she said something that made the air feel colder. "3 families moved in before you." Daniel felt a strange chill. What happened to them? The woman stared at the house. "They never stayed longer than 3 nights." A long silence passed. Then Daniel forced himself to chuckle. "Well, I guess I'll try to break the record." But the woman didn't smile. As Daniel unlocked the front door, she said one final sentence. Quietly. "Don't stay awake at 3:17 a.m. Daniel froze. Why that time? But when he turned around, the woman had already gone back inside her house. The door shut, leaving Daniel alone in the rain. He shook his head and opened the door. Dust filled the air as the door creaked open. The inside smelled like mold and old wood. But the structure was solid. It just needed cleaning. Daniel stepped inside. The house was silent. Too silent. Then suddenly, thump. A loud noise came from upstairs. Daniel froze. His heart started beating faster. He stared at the staircase. But after a few seconds, nothing happened. He laughed nervously. Just the house settling. Still, he decided one thing immediately. Tomorrow, he would install security cameras everywhere. Just in case. Because if something really was inside the house, he wanted proof. But that night, Daniel didn't realize something terrifying. Something inside the house was already watching him. And it had been waiting for someone new to arrive. The next morning, sunlight barely managed to push through the heavy clouds hanging over the neighborhood. Daniel stood in the living room surrounded by boxes filled with security equipment. Cameras. Motion sensors. Night vision recorders. If something strange was happening in this house, he was going to capture it. Let's see what secrets this place has, Daniel muttered. He began installing cameras in every room. Living room. Kitchen. Hallway. Staircase. Even the bedroom upstairs. Each camera connected to a single monitor system he placed in the living room. By afternoon, everything was working. 8 cameras. 8 different angles. Nothing could move in the house without being recorded. Daniel leaned back on the couch and watched the monitors. Every room appeared clearly. Empty. Quiet. Normal. He smirked. So much for haunted houses. The day passed peacefully. No strange noises. No moving objects. Nothing. By evening, Daniel started to relax. Maybe the old woman had just been telling ghost stories. Still, before going to bed, Daniel glanced at the monitors one last time. All cameras were recording. Everything looked normal. He turned off the lights and went upstairs. The house fell silent again. Hours passed. Outside, the wind picked up. Branches scratched against the windows. Inside the living room, the monitors continued recording. 11:45 p.m. Nothing moved. 1:12 a.m. Still nothing. 2:46 a.m. The house remained silent. Then, the digital clock on the screen changed. 3:17 a.m. And suddenly, one of the cameras flickered. Just for a second. The kitchen camera. The screen glitched. Static flashed across the monitor. Then the image returned. But something had changed. The kitchen cabinet door was now slightly open. Slowly. Very slowly. The cabinet door creaked wider. No one was there. The room was empty. The door continued opening. Until it stopped completely. Then the camera flickered again. And this time, something appeared in the corner of the room. A small shape. Standing perfectly still. Watching. The camera zoomed slightly as the motion detection activated. Revealing the shape clearly. It looked like a child-sized doll. But Daniel had never brought any dolls into the house. And the doll's eyes were staring directly at the camera. Morning sunlight crept slowly through the cracked blinds of Daniel Carter's bedroom. He woke up feeling strangely uneasy. For a moment, he couldn't explain why. Then he remembered. The house. The warnings. The strange noise he heard the first night. Daniel rubbed his face and sat up in bed. Relax, he muttered to himself. It's just an old house. Still, something inside him felt wrong. Like he had forgotten something important. He grabbed his phone. 7:42 a.m. The wind outside had stopped, leaving the neighborhood eerily quiet. Daniel walked downstairs, the wooden steps creaking under his weight. When he reached the living room, the first thing he noticed was the monitors. All 8 security cameras were still recording. Nothing looked unusual. Every room appeared exactly the same as when he left them. Empty. Still. Normal. Daniel grabbed a cup of coffee and sat down in front of the monitor system. He opened the recording playback. Let's see if anything interesting happened last night. He fast-forwarded the footage. The timeline bar moved quickly across the screen. 11 p.m. Nothing. 12:30 a.m. Nothing. 1:45 a.m. Still nothing. Daniel chuckled. Guess the ghosts were on vacation. He continued skipping forward. Then something caught his attention. At 3. 17 a.m., the system showed a motion detection alert. Daniel frowned. That's weird. He clicked the timestamp. The footage began playing. The kitchen camera appeared on the screen. At first, everything looked completely normal. The kitchen was empty. The table stood untouched. The cabinet doors were closed. Daniel leaned closer. Then suddenly, the cabinet door moved. Slowly. Very slowly. Daniel froze. The door creaked open by itself. No one was there. No wind. No movement. Just the cabinet door opening slowly, like something invisible was pulling it. Daniel stared at the screen, his coffee forgotten. What the hell? The door stopped halfway. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then the camera flickered. Static flashed across the screen. The image distorted for a split second. And when the picture returned, Daniel felt his stomach drop. Something was now standing in the corner of the kitchen. Something that had not been there before. Daniel leaned closer to the monitor. The figure was small. About the size of a child. It wasn't moving. Just standing there. Perfectly still. Daniel zoomed the footage. The camera enhanced the image. And that's when he saw it clearly. It wasn't a child. It was a doll. A dirty, old doll. Its porcelain face was cracked. Dark stains covered its clothes. But the worst part were the eyes. The doll's glass eyes were staring directly into the camera. Daniel felt a cold shiver run down his spine. He paused the footage. Okay, this isn't funny. He quickly checked the live camera feed. The kitchen camera showed the room exactly as it was now. Empty. No doll. Nothing. Daniel frowned. Did someone break in? He grabbed a flashlight and walked toward the kitchen. Every step felt heavier. The house was completely silent. Too silent. When Daniel entered the kitchen, he looked around carefully. Nothing. No doll. No open cabinet. Everything looked normal. Exactly like it had always been. Daniel slowly exhaled. Maybe it's just a camera glitch. He returned to the living room and played the footage again. This time, he watched more carefully. The cabinet opened. The static flickered. The doll appeared in the corner. But then something else happened. Something Daniel had missed the first time. A few seconds later, the system switched to another camera. The hallway camera. When it switched back to the kitchen camera 10 seconds later, the doll was gone. Daniel frowned. Wait. He rewound the footage. Again. The cabinet opened. The doll appeared. The camera switched views. Then returned. The corner was empty. Daniel's heartbeat started rising. Where did it go? He quickly checked the hallway footage. The hallway camera played. Nothing moved. The staircase camera. Nothing. The living room camera. Still nothing. Then Daniel clicked the bedroom camera footage. The video loaded. Daniel leaned closer. And suddenly his entire body went cold. Standing in the far corner of his bedroom was the same doll. But this time, it was closer. Much closer. Standing only a few feet away from his bed. And the most terrifying part. The doll's head was slightly tilted. Like it was watching him while he slept. Daniel stared at the screen in complete horror. Then the footage continued. The camera switched again. When it returned, the doll had moved even closer to the bed. Daniel's hands began shaking. He skipped forward in the footage. The doll kept getting closer. Every time the camera switched away and switched back, the doll had moved again. Step by step. Closer. 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 Until finally. The last clip appeared. 3:29 a.m. The doll was standing right next to Daniel's bed. Only inches away from where his head had been sleeping. Daniel felt his breathing stop. The footage continued for a few seconds. Then something happened that made his blood run cold. Slowly. Very slowly. The doll turned its head. And looked directly at the camera. Daniel stared at the monitor, unable to move. The footage had ended, but the image of the doll standing beside his bed was still burned into his mind. His heart was pounding. "This has to be fake," he whispered. But he knew something terrifying. He lived alone. No one else had access to the house. And he had never brought any doll inside. Daniel rewound the footage again. 3:17 a.m. The cabinet opened. The doll appeared in the kitchen. 3:21 a.m. The hallway camera switched. 3:23 a.m. The doll appeared in the bedroom. 3:29 a.m. It stood beside his bed. And finally, the doll slowly turned its head toward the camera. Daniel paused the screen. The doll's eyes seemed to stare directly into him. For a moment, the entire house felt colder. Then Daniel did something impulsive. He checked the live camera feed for the bedroom. The screen loaded. The room appeared exactly as it was now. Empty. The bed. The dresser. The window. No doll. Daniel let out a shaky breath. Okay. Maybe someone edited the footage somehow. But deep down, he didn't believe his own explanation. Still, he tried to calm himself. He grabbed his phone and searched online. Moving doll caught on camera. Thousands of results appeared. Videos. Stories. Urban legends. But one article caught his attention. It described something called the watching doll phenomenon. According to the article, certain paranormal cases described dolls that only moved when they were not being watched. Daniel felt a chill crawl up his spine. That's ridiculous. He shut his phone off. But then he remembered something. The footage. The doll only moved when the camera switched away. Whenever the camera returned, the doll had moved closer. Daniel suddenly felt extremely uncomfortable inside the house. He stood up and looked around the living room. The silence felt heavy. Like the house was holding its breath. Daniel forced himself to laugh. "You're imagining things." But the feeling wouldn't go away. As evening slowly arrived, Daniel made a decision. Tonight, he would stay awake. And he would watch the cameras the entire night. If something moved again, he would see it. No switching cameras. No missing footage. Just one camera. Watching the bedroom. Waiting. Hours passed. The sky outside turned dark. The wind returned, whispering through the trees. Daniel sat on the couch staring at the monitor. The bedroom camera filled the screen. The room was empty. 11 p.m. Nothing. 12:14 a.m. Still nothing. 1:38 a.m. Daniel yawned. His eyes felt heavy. But he refused to sleep. The digital clock continued ticking. 2:47 a.m. The house remained silent. Then, the clock changed. 3:17 a.m. Daniel leaned forward. This is it. The bedroom camera showed the empty room. The bed. The closet. The dark corners. Nothing moved. For several minutes. Nothing happened. Daniel exhaled slowly. Maybe last night was just some glitch. But then, the camera flickered. Just for a split second. Daniel frowned. No, stay on. The monitor suddenly switched to the hallway camera. Daniel quickly pressed the button. Switch back. But the system didn't respond. For 5 seconds. The hallway camera remained on the screen. Then finally, the monitor switched back to the bedroom camera. Daniel froze instantly. Something was different. Something was now standing in the room. Right beside the door. The doll. Daniel's heart slammed against his chest. The doll was back. And this time, it was closer than before. Its head tilted slightly. Its glass eyes staring straight at the bed. Daniel whispered in disbelief. No, no, no. He quickly checked the live bedroom camera. The room upstairs was supposed to be empty. But on the screen, the doll was clearly standing there. Which meant one terrifying thing. The doll was inside the house right now. Daniel slowly turned his head toward the staircase. The stairs leading upstairs were dark. Silent. For a moment, Daniel considered leaving the house immediately. But curiosity stopped him. If this was real, he needed proof. Daniel grabbed his flashlight. His hands were shaking as he walked toward the stairs. Every step creaked loudly. The house felt alive. Watching him. Waiting. Daniel reached the top of the staircase. The hallway stretched into darkness. The bedroom door at the end was slightly open. Daniel swallowed. Then slowly, he pushed the door open. The bedroom was empty. The bed. The dresser. The window. No doll. Daniel felt confused. He looked back at the monitor downstairs through the open door. The screen was still showing the bedroom camera. And on that screen, the doll was still standing inside the room. Daniel's breathing stopped. Because in the monitor image, the doll was not standing near the door anymore. It had moved. Now, it was standing directly behind him. Daniel's entire body froze. He slowly turned his head toward the hallway. Nothing was there. The hallway behind him was empty. His breathing became uneven. That's impossible. Daniel ran back downstairs to the living room where the monitor system was still running. His hands trembled as he stared at the screen. The bedroom camera still showed the doll standing behind him. But when Daniel replayed the live feed again, the doll wasn't there. The room was empty. Just like when he checked upstairs. Daniel stepped back, trying to calm his racing heart. This house is messing with my head. But then he noticed something strange. The recording timeline had continued. The system had saved new footage. Timestamp, 3:31 a.m. Daniel hesitated. Then he pressed play. The bedroom camera appeared again. The room was dark. The door slowly creaked open. Daniel watched in silence. And then, the doll walked into the room. Not sliding. Not appearing suddenly. Walking. Slow, stiff movements. Step. 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 Daniel's blood ran cold. The doll walked directly toward the bed. Then it stopped. The camera zoomed slightly as motion detection activated. The doll turned its head slowly. But this time, it wasn't looking at the bed. It was looking directly into the camera. As if it knew someone was watching. Daniel whispered, terrified. No, no, no. The footage continued. The doll stood there for several seconds. Then something even more disturbing happened. The doll raised one arm. Slowly. And pointed toward the camera. Then the screen suddenly flickered. Static filled the monitor. The video glitched violently. For a few seconds, the entire system lost signal. Then the image returned. But now, the bedroom camera was showing something different. The room was empty again. The doll was gone. Daniel felt relief for 1 second. But then he noticed something in the corner of the screen. A reflection. In the mirror beside the bed. Daniel leaned closer. His heart nearly stopped. In the mirror's reflection, the doll was standing behind the camera. Right where the lens should be. Which meant something impossible. The doll wasn't in the room anymore. It was standing behind the camera itself. Daniel slowly looked up from the monitor. His eyes moved toward the staircase. The house was silent again. Too silent. Then suddenly. Creak. A soft sound came from upstairs. Like something small. Walking across the wooden floor. Daniel's breathing became shallow. Another step echoed through the house. Step. Then another. Step. The sound slowly moved toward the stairs. Daniel stared at the dark staircase in horror. Something was coming down. Slowly. Patiently. Step. 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 Daniel grabbed the camera system remote and quickly checked the staircase camera. The screen loaded. But the staircase was empty. No movement. Nothing there. Yet the footsteps continued. Louder now. Closer. Daniel whispered in terror. If it's not on the camera. Then the lights suddenly went out. The monitors shut off. The house fell into complete darkness. And in the silence, Daniel heard one final sound. Right behind him. A small voice. Soft. Broken. Whispering into his ear. You looked away. The recording ended there. The next morning, the house was empty again. Just like it had been. For the last 20 years.